Markle sat in the quiet corner of Ron Prime's central station, sipping a cup of strong black tea. The station was alive with sound of vendors calling out deals, shuttles taking off with sharp bursts of light, and people from dozens of worlds, moving in every direction. But Markle was in no hurry. His work had taught him that sometimes the galaxy moved too fast, and you had to sit still just to understand it. He had been on Veron Prime for 3 weeks, waiting for a trade agreement to be finalized between two mining colonies. That was the kind of work Markle was known for, solving problems, not with weapons, but with words. It wasn't the most glamorous life, but it kept him traveling and meeting strange and fascinating people. Just as he set down his cup, a small, silver drone floated towards his table. It hovered for a moment, scanned his face with a thin beam of blue light, and then projected a golden seal in the air. The emblem of the Galactic Court. Markle's eyebrows rose. The court didn't send messages to ordinary people. They only summoned leaders, high officials, or, on rare occasions, witnesses to great matters. The drone's metallic voice spoke in perfect standard, Markle of Earth. By the authority of the Galactic Court, you are ordered to present the Princess of the Ralith Empire for questioning. Departure is required within 1 cycle. This order is final and cannot be refused. The hologram faded, leaving only the soft hum of the drone before it drifted away. Markle sat there for a moment, not moving. The Princess of the Ralith Empire. He had never met her, never even seen a Ralith royal up close. He knew the Raliths were one of the oldest and proudest civilizations in this part of the galaxy, and their ruler, the king, was known for his iron control over politics. This was strange, and strange orders often meant trouble. He finished his tea in 1 swallow, stood up, and walked towards the station's transport terminal. Whatever this was, it wasn't something he could ignore. The royal docking bay was easy to find. It was the only part of the station guarded by tall, silver-armored sentries holding long energy pikes. As Markle approached, one of them stepped forward, scanning him from head to toe. "State your business," the guard said, his voice deep and cold. "I'm here for Princess Alira." Markle answered, showing the official summons on his datapad. The guard's eyes flickered with something close to surprise, but he quickly hid it. "Wait here." Markle stood quietly, feeling the eyes of the guards on him. Humans were still uncommon in this part of the galaxy, and most aliens saw them as unpredictable. It wasn't a bad reputation to have. Unpredictability kept people cautious. After a few minutes, a figure stepped through the wide, silver doorway. She was tall, with deep green eyes that seemed to see everything at once. Her clothes were made of smooth, flowing fabric that shifted colors in the light, silver, then blue, then soft violet. This was clearly Princess Alira. "You are the human they sent," she said in a calm voice, stopping a few paces away. "I am," Markle replied. "The court says you need to come with me." Alira's expression didn't change, but her voice lowered. "My father has forbidden me to appear before the court. He says their matters are beneath our throne. Yet the court is higher than any throne," Markle said simply. She tilted her head slightly, studying him as though he were a puzzle she wasn't sure she wanted to solve. "You speak boldly. For someone who serves neither my crown nor the court, I don't serve either." Markle replied, "I serve the truth, and right now, the truth is that you've been summoned. The court doesn't send orders for nothing." Alira gave the faintest smile, almost hidden. "You will find, human, that in the galaxy, orders and truth are rarely the same." The journey from the docking bay to Markle's ship, the Silver Path, was quiet. The royal guards followed at a distance, their helmets hiding any expression. Markle noticed the way Alira walked, tall and steady, not a single step out of place, like someone who had trained her whole life to show strength in every movement. When they reached the ship, Alira paused before boarding. "Do you believe the court will protect me from my father?" she asked. Markle looked her in the eye. "I believe the court will hear you. Whether they protect you, that's another matter. But once your words are spoken in their chamber, no one can take them back." She studied him for a moment, then stepped inside the small but well-kept ship. Markle took the pilot's chair while Lyra sat in the co-pilot's seat. Watching the star field through the forward window, her gaze seemed far away, and Markle didn't press her with questions. He had learned long ago that sometimes silence was the best way to make someone speak. After several minutes, she broke it herself. "You humans," she began slowly, "are strange creatures. You live short lives compared to most species, yet you act as though every moment must be filled with meaning. You take risks others would never dare. You challenge kings and councils without hesitation. Why?" Markle didn't look away from the control panel as he adjusted their course. "Because we don't have much time, and if we don't speak when it matters, we may never get the chance again." Lyra turned her head toward him for a brief moment. Something softened in her expression, respect, perhaps, or curiosity. Then she looked back at the stars. As the silver path drifted out of the station's traffic lanes and into the open void, Markle thought about what lay ahead. The summons didn't explain why the princess had to appear. It didn't say what she had seen or what she would testify about, but he could feel it in the air. This wasn't going to be a simple matter. The galaxy had a way of pulling humans into storms they didn't start. And Markle knew one thing. Once you stepped into such a storm, there was no turning back. Far behind them, on the royal comm channels, the king of Ralith was already giving orders. His daughter was leaving the station with a human, and that, to him, was unacceptable. The stars drifted slowly across the viewing glass as the silver path left the safety of Veron Prime's station and entered the open void. The hum of the ship's engines was steady, a soft background sound that filled the quiet between Markle and Princess Lyra. For the first hour, neither spoke. Markle focused on setting their course toward the galactic court station. Lyra sat in the co-pilot's seat, her eyes fixed on the endless field of light beyond the glass. She seemed calm, but Markle knew that calmness could be a shield, the kind used by people who grew up under constant watch. Finally, Lyra broke the silence. "You should know," she said slowly, "my father will not let this pass quietly." Markle didn't look away from the navigation controls. "I expected as much. He will send ships after us," she continued. "They will not attack you openly. At least not yet, but they will try to stop us if they can bring me back before we reach the court. They will." Markle glanced at her. "Then we'll just have to make sure they don't." The ship's control panel blinked with new signals. Markle leaned forward, scanning the display. 3 small dots appeared behind them, moving fast. Lyra noticed his glance. "Royal patrols?" "Most likely," Markle said, "but they're still keeping their distance." He pressed a few switches, diverting more power to the ships. "Rear shields. They'll probably try to block our route, force us to land somewhere safe." Lyra's voice was quiet, but firm. "Safe for them, not for me." Markle gave a small nod. "Exactly." The first real attempt came near the drifting moons of Alari. The 3 pursuing ships moved ahead, their engines burning bright. As they adjusted course to cut the silver path off, Markle slowed their speed slightly, pretending to comply. At the last moment, he pulled the ship into a sharp roll and dove under the moon's shadow. The enemy ships, not expecting the sudden move, overshot their position. That was reckless. Lyra said, gripping the armrest of her seat. "That was human," Markle replied with a faint smile. She gave him a sideways glance, then looked back at the stars. "I see now why your kind is considered unpredictable." Once the patrols were behind them again, the journey grew calmer for a while. Markle activated the autopilot and stepped away from the controls. "Come on," he said. "You should eat something." They sat at the small table in the ship's galley. Markle served her a simple meal, warm vegetable broth with bread. The princess accepted it without complaint, though he doubted she was used to such plain food. After a few minutes, she spoke again. "You said earlier that you serve the truth, but the truth can be dangerous. Why fight for it?" Markle leaned back, considering his words, because if no one does, lies take its place. And lies have a way of growing until they rule everything. Lyra stirred her broth slowly. "In my world, truth is a weapon used by those in power, and hidden from those without it. In mine," Markle said. Truth is the only thing worth holding onto when everything else falls apart. Their quiet meal was interrupted by a sudden alarm from the cockpit. Markle jumped to his feet. Alira right behind him. On the navigation screen, a new signal appeared. A much larger ship was approaching fast from the left. Alira's eyes narrowed. That is no patrol. That is the king's emissary. A voice crackled over the comm channel. Deep and commanding, human vessel Silver Path. This is Envoy Drast of the Raloth Empire. You are carrying Princess Alira without consent of the crown. You will reduce speed and prepare for boarding. Markle kept his voice calm as he replied. By order of the Galactic Court, Princess Alira is required to appear for questioning. I will deliver her as commanded. You misunderstand. Human, the envoy's voice grew colder. You will deliver her to me. Markle muted the channel and glanced at Alira. How far will they go to get you back? Her answer was simple. As far as it takes. The larger ship began closing in. Markle tapped a quick sequence into the controls, plotting a path through a nearby asteroid field. Hold on, he said. The envoy's ship followed, but its larger frame struggled to maneuver between the moving rocks. Markle guided the Silver Path into a narrow gap between two slowly turning asteroids. Their surfaces gleaming with icy dust, the rocks spun dangerously close. So close that the ship's shield sparked faintly from brushing against them. Alira gripped the side of her seat. Is this what humans call safe flying? This is what humans call threading the needle, Markle said. Teeth clenched as he steered through another tight gap. Behind them, the envoy's ship clipped the edge of an asteroid, forcing it to slow down. By the time it cleared the path, the Silver Path was far ahead. When they were finally out of danger, Alira let out a long breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. You are either very skilled or very foolish, Markle smirked. Sometimes they look the same. She shook her head, but there was a trace of admiration in her eyes now. If you survive this journey, it will be because you are both. They flew in silence for a while longer, the stars stretching into bright lines as the ship jumped to faster-than-light travel. Somewhere ahead lay the Galactic Court, and the truth Alira carried. But Markle knew the king wouldn't give up after one failed attempt. The hardest part of their journey was still to come. The stars outside the viewing glass blurred into soft streaks as the Silver Path cruised through faster-than-light space. Inside the quiet hum of the ship, Markle sat at the navigation console, reviewing their route to the Galactic Court station. It would take another two standard days to arrive. Assuming no more royal interruptions along the way, Princess Alira sat across from him, her gaze fixed on a datapad. She had been silent since their escape from the king's envoy. At first, Markle assumed she was simply exhausted, but as the hours passed, he sensed something heavier in the air, something unspoken. Finally, Alira set the datapad down. You will want to know why the court summoned me, she said quietly. Markle didn't turn his chair. If you want to tell me, you will. If you don't, I'll still get you there. Her eyes narrowed slightly. You are not curious? I'm human, he said. Curiosity is part of us. But I also know when forcing an answer makes the truth harder to hear. Alira stood and crossed the small cabin, standing near the wide viewing glass. The passing light made shifting patterns across her face. For a long time, she said nothing. When she finally spoke, her voice was steady but low. I saw something I was never meant to see. Markle glanced over his shoulder. Go on. She took a slow breath. A meeting in my father's private hall. The king of Raloth and the leaders of the Xeric Dominion. They signed an agreement, an alliance hidden from the court, hidden from our people. If it is carried out, 3-star systems will fall under their joint control within a year. Markle frowned. The court won't like that. They will do more than dislike it, Alira said. Such an alliance is illegal under interstellar law. The Raloth Empire would face sanctions, loss of trade routes, perhaps even military action from the United Systems. Markle leaned back in his chair, studying her carefully. And you're the only one who can prove this happened. Alira nodded. I recorded the meeting. I have both visual and audio proof. But once the court hears it, my father will see me as a traitor. Her voice didn't break, but Markle caught the faintest shadow in her eyes. It was the shadow of someone who understood exactly what her choice would cost her. "Do you fear him?" Markle asked softly. She didn't answer at once. "I fear what he will do to protect his throne. And I fear that even if I speak the truth, we'll be buried." Markle stood and walked to the control panel. "If you speak, the truth will be out. Once it's out, no one can put it back in the box, not even a king." They spent the next few hours in quiet. Markle focused on keeping their course clear of known Ralith patrol routes. Alira reviewed the recording on her datapad, checking it for any errors or missing pieces. During their evening meal, a simple stew of grain and herbs, Alira asked, "Do humans often stand against those more powerful than them?" Markle smiled faintly. "Often enough. Sometimes we win, sometimes we don't, but we always try." "And why?" She pressed. "Because power without challenge becomes dangerous," Markle replied. "If no one speaks up, those in power start to believe they can do anything. And when that happens, they do." Their conversation was cut short by a sudden beep from the long-range scanner. Markle set down his spoon and moved to the console. The screen showed a small blip moving slowly across their path. Not a patrol ship this time, but a beacon. "That's odd," Markle muttered. "Court beacons don't usually sit in the middle of a travel lane." Alira stepped beside him. "It could be a trap." Markle nodded. "It could also be a distress signal. Humans don't ignore those." He slowed the silver path as they approached. The beacon was attached to a small shuttle, barely large enough for 2 passengers. Its hull was scratched and scorched, and its lights flickered weakly. "Life signs?" Alira asked. Markle scanned the shuttle. "One. Faint, but alive." He maneuvered the silver path alongside and engaged the docking clamps. A few minutes later, the airlock cycled open and a small figure stumbled inside, a thin alien with pale skin and wide, frightened eyes. Markle helped the newcomer to a seat. "Easy, you're safe now." The alien's voice was weak but urgent. "You must not go to the court. They will stop you." "Already waiting." Before Markle could ask more, the alien fainted. Alira exchanged a worried glance with him. "If the court is already compromised, we don't know that," Markle said quickly. "It could be fear talking, or it could be true. Either way, we can't turn back." She studied him for a moment. Even if walking into danger, he gave a small, dry laugh. Especially then, the rescued passenger remained unconscious. But his warning lingered in the air between them. The rest of the night passed without another word about it. Markle didn't need to ask what Alira was thinking. The same thought circled in his own mind. If the court really had been influenced by the king or the Jarek Dominion, Alira's testimony could disappear before anyone ever heard it. And if that happened, they would have risked everything for nothing. Markle adjusted the ship's course slightly, choosing a longer route that kept them off major traffic lanes. If anyone was watching for them, they'd have to look harder now. Later, as Alira sat once again by the viewing glass, she spoke without looking at him. "When I was young, my father told me that the galaxy was a chessboard. Every piece had its place. Some were moved, others were sacrificed. I am starting to think he was right." Markle glanced at her. "The thing about chess is, even a pawn can reach the other side and change the game." For the first time since they left Veron Prime, Alira smiled, small, but real. "Perhaps I will be that pawn." Markle returned to the controls. "Perhaps you already are." They continued their journey, carrying not just the princess of the Ralith Empire, but the weight of a truth heavy enough to shake the galaxy. And somewhere ahead, unseen in the dark, forces waited to make sure that truth never reached the court. The silver path glided through the dark expanse, its engines a soft hum against the silence of space. Princess Alira sat in the co-pilot's seat, her eyes fixed on the shifting patterns of distant stars. Markle, at the controls, kept his attention on the navigation display. Every so often, he glanced at the scanners, checking for pursuit. So far, the longer, hidden route had kept them free from Ralith patrols. But Markle knew the king's resources were vast. When someone like the king wanted you found, the galaxy could feel very small. The faint beeping of the ship's proximity alert broke the quiet. Markle's gaze flicked to the screen. A A single large vessel had appeared at the edge of their sensor range. Moving steadily toward them, Alira leaned forward. "Is it one of my father's ships?" Markle studied the readings. "It's Ralph design, heavy armor, medium weapons, fast enough to catch us if it wants to." Her voice grew firm. "It's the King's Hand. His trusted ships are called that. When they move, it's as if my father himself is reaching out." The incoming vessel hailed them before Markle could adjust their course. The voice that came through was deep, precise, and carried the weight of command. "Human pilot of the Silver Path, I'm Envoy Sarek, acting under the authority of the Ralph Crown. You are carrying Princess Alira in violation of royal order. Reduce speed and prepare for transfer." Markle kept his own tone calm. "Envoy Sarek, by the order of the Galactic Court, Princess Alira is required to appear for questioning. I am bound to deliver her there." The envoy's voice sharpened. "You are bound by nothing, human. The court cannot protect you from the consequences of defying the crown. Turn back, and you will be rewarded beyond imagination." Markle muted the channel and looked at Alira. "Your father's envoy is offering a bribe." "He is offering you safety," she said quietly. "He thinks humans are easily bought." Markle's mouth curved in a small smile. "Then he's never met the right kind of human." Sarek's ship began to close the distance. Its engines flared, and its weapons systems came online, not firing yet, but ready. Markle tapped a new set of commands into his console. "We'll have to lose him before we reach the main trade lanes. If he follows us there, others might get involved." Alira raised an eyebrow. "And if they side with him, then?" Markle said, "We'll just have to make sure they don't get the chance." A quick scan of the surrounding space showed a dense asteroid field to light minutes ahead. The rocks were in slow rotation, their surfaces glistening with ice and metal. Flying through it would be dangerous, but it offered the best chance to break line of sight. Markle pushed the ship's engines harder. "Hold on. We're going to run the gauntlet." Sarek's voice returned over the comms, now sharper with command. "Do not enter the asteroid field, Silver Path. Your vessel will not survive." Markle ignored him and angled toward the field. The Silver Path slipped between the first cluster of massive rocks, weaving through narrow gaps where the shields sparked against drifting ice. Sarek's ship followed, its heavier frame struggling to make the same turns. Markle's hands moved quickly over the controls, guiding the ship between two huge, rotating asteroids. The gap was so tight that Alira's breath caught in her throat. "This," she said, gripping her seat, "is madness." "This," Markle replied, "is threading the needle." A smaller asteroid tumbled past, scraping against the Silver Path's shields with a brief flash of light. Alira held her breath as they slipped past another spinning mass of rock, so close she could see the fine cracks along its icy surface behind them. Sarek's ship tried to follow the same path, but one wrong turn forced it to veer away, losing precious seconds. The instant they cleared the other side of the field, Markle pushed the engines to maximum. The ship leapt forward into the open void, leaving the envoy's vessel fading in the distance. Alira let out a long breath. "You do realize my father will not stop here?" "I do," Markle said, checking the scanners. "But now we know something important. His best envoy can't outfly us." With the immediate danger past, Alira stood and walked toward the galley. Markle followed after locking the controls. They sat across from each other at the small table, the tension between them slowly giving way to thought. "You could have accepted his offer," Alira said after a while. "You could have turned me over and walked away without risk." Markle shook his head. "And what would that make me? Someone who traded truth for comfort? That's not why I'm here." Alira's eyes softened. "You speak as if truth is worth more than life." "Sometimes it is," Markle replied. The conversation was interrupted by a faint groan from the back of the ship. The alien they had rescued earlier, the one who had warned them about the court, was awake. Markle helped him sit up. The alien's voice was weak but urgent. "The king's reach is long, even in the court. His influence is strong. Be careful whom you trust when you arrive." Alira frowned. "You speak as if you've seen this before." The alien nodded slowly. "I have seen voices silenced before they could be heard. Do not let yours be one of them. Later, when the ship was quiet again, Markle returned to the cockpit. Alira stood beside him, watching the stars. "You're not afraid," she said. Softly. "Not of him," Markle answered. "I've faced kings before. They all think they can't be beaten, until they are." She gave a small smile. "You may be human, but in this, you think like a Rowlith rebel." He returned the smile faintly. "Rebel or not, we're in this together now." As the silver path sailed on toward the galactic court, the king's hand had failed to seize them. But Markle knew the king himself would soon try, and when that moment came, there would be no asteroid field to hide behind. The grand courtroom of the alien palace was filled with murmurs, as though the air itself carried whispers. Rows of alien nobles sat in their silver and crystal chairs, their eyes reflecting colors unknown to humans. Guards stood tall, holding long spears that hummed with energy. In the center, under the high dome painted with stars, stood Daniel, the human who had dared to bring the alien princess, Alara, to this place of judgment. The king sat high on his throne, silent but tense. His golden crown seemed heavier than usual, his fingers tapping on the armrest. Daniel noticed it. The king had been trying to remain uninvolved, yet his eyes darted constantly toward his daughter. The trial was no longer just about laws, it was about truths the royal family didn't. Tiwant revealed. Alara stood beside Daniel, her pale blue skin faintly glowing under the court's light. She was calm, but Daniel could feel the faint tremor in her hands. She had told him earlier, in a quiet corner, "Once the truth comes out, there will be no going back." The judge, an elder alien with long silver hair, raised her staff. "Bring forth the records," she commanded. A tall clerk stepped forward, carrying a crystal sphere. Inside it swirled moving images, fragments of memories and events. "These are the hidden recordings of the border conflict," the clerk announced. "They were found in the archives that were locked by royal order." Gasps echoed through the room. Daniel's jaw tightened. He had risked much to find this evidence, sneaking into the forbidden wing of the palace, dodging guards, and trusting the one old archivist who still believed in justice. The images floated into the air, projected above the center of the court. The audience saw alien soldiers attacking a group of humans on a distant mining colony. But something was wrong. The humans had been unarmed, and there were no signs of provocation. Then came another scene, a meeting between alien generals and a shadowed figure, who stepped into the light. It was not a human leader, it was one of the alien king's own advisors. The room grew tense. Even the king's hand froze in mid-tap. The judge's voice was sharp. "Advisor Relf, do you deny this?" A tall, green-skinned alien rose from the side benches. His voice was steady, but his eyes were cold. "Those images are fabricated. They are tricks meant to turn us against our own." Daniel stepped forward. "They are not fake. I saw the original archive myself. I copied it with the help of the archivist before it could be destroyed." Advisor Relf ordered the attack on humans, not out of defense, but to take control of the rare minerals from their colony. Alara took a deep breath and spoke clearly, her voice ringing across the court. "I testify as a witness. I was present when Relf gave the order. I spoke against it, but I was silenced. That is why I helped Daniel bring this matter here. This war between our species was born from greed, not justice." The nobles murmured louder now, some in shock, others in anger. The king's eyes narrowed. He looked at Relf, then at his daughter. There was a long silence, heavy as stone. Finally, the king spoke for the first time that day. "Relf, is this true?" Relf did not bow. "Your Majesty, I acted for the good of our empire. Humans are unpredictable. They would have taken those resources for themselves." Daniel shook his head. "And how many lives, alien and human, were lost for your so-called good of the empire?" Relf's jaw tightened. "Sometimes sacrifices must be made." The judge struck her staff against the floor. "Enough. This court will examine the evidence in full. No one, not even an advisor of the crown, is above the law." For the first time, Daniel saw something flicker in the king's eyes conflict. He had not wanted to intervene in this case, but the truth was becoming too large to ignore. The air in the courtroom felt charged, as though history was about to change. But then, as the judge prepared to call the next witness, one of the palace guards rushed in. His voice was urgent. "Your Majesty, the outer gates have been breached." Armed ships approached the capital. The judge looked startled. Who would dare? The guard's face was pale. "It is Relf's private fleet. They are demanding the release of their leader." The room erupted into chaos. Nobles shouted. Guards moved toward Relf, but he stepped back. Activating a small device on his wrist, a shimmer appeared around him, a personal shield. Relf's voice was cold and steady. "If you wish to see your precious city survive, you will end this trial now." Daniel's mind raced. The trial had just shifted from a battle of truth to a race against time. If Relf escaped, justice would never be served and the fragile peace between humans and aliens could shatter. Forever, Alara turned to Daniel, her voice low but fierce. "We have one chance to stop him before his fleet attacks, but it means breaking court rules." Daniel met her eyes. "Then we break them," the judge shouted for order. But the sound of distant explosions echoed through the walls. The grand trial was no longer safe. The truth had been spoken, but now it had to be protected before it was silenced forever. And as Daniel moved toward Relf, ready to risk everything, he realized the king still hadn't made his choice. Would he side with justice or with the safety of his throne? The answer would decide the fate of two worlds. The courtroom was tense. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the large table in the center where Aaron stood beside Princess Lyra. The king sat at the far end. His golden crown tilted slightly forward as if its weight matched the pressure building. In the air, the alien nobles whispered among themselves, while human diplomats in the back row watched silently. Aaron knew this moment was crucial. For weeks, he had gathered proof to defend the princess against the false accusations. Now, it was time to reveal it all. The alien judge, a tall figure with silver skin and glowing blue eyes, leaned forward. "Human Aaron," the judge's voice echoed in the hall. "You claim to hold evidence that will change the course of this trial. Present it." Aaron nodded. He stepped forward and activated a small projector. On the table, a holographic display filled the air. Clear images, videos, and data logs appeared. Gasps filled the room. "These records," Aaron began, "were taken from the palace's own security system. They show exactly what happened the night the royal seal was stolen." The images shifted, showing a shadowy figure in the princess's chambers. The crowd held their breath until the figure's face became clear. "It was not Lyra. It is Lord Varen," a voice cried out from the back. The hall erupted in noise. Lord Varen, a high-ranking noble, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. His eyes darted toward the king, then toward the exit. Guards immediately moved to block his way. Aaron continued, "Not only that, but the data logs show the access codes used that night. These codes belong to Lord Varen, not the princess." Princess Lyra looked at Aaron, her eyes wide but full of gratitude. She whispered, "You've done it." But Aaron wasn't finished. He switched the hologram to another set of files, hidden messages sent between Varen and a foreign rival empire. The messages detailed a plan to frame the princess and destabilize the royal court. This, Aaron said firmly, was an act of treachery, and it was never about justice, it was about power. The alien judge studied the data silently for a long moment before speaking. "King Arados," the judge said, turning toward the throne, "these are your own palace records. Do you dispute them?" The king hesitated. His hands gripped the arms of his throne. His voice was heavy when he finally spoke. "No, the records are genuine." Gasps rippled again. It was the first time the king had admitted that the evidence might be true, but his expression was unreadable, as if part of him still resisted. This turn of events, Lord Varen suddenly stood, his voice loud and desperate. "This is lies. The human forged it." Aaron met his gaze calmly. "If I forged it, then why does the palace security AI confirm every field's authenticity?" The hologram shifted to display the AI's digital signature, a code impossible to fake. Varen's defiance faltered. Guards surrounded him, their weapons ready. The judge's voice cut through the chaos. "Lord Varen, you are hereby detained for conspiracy against the royal family. You will be held until a full investigation is complete." as Varen was taken away. Aaron turned back toward the judge with this. I ask that all charges against Princess Lyra be dropped immediately. The judge nodded. The court will deliberate, but the evidence is strong. You may both stand down for now. Relief washed over Lyra's face, but Aaron remained cautious. He knew powerful enemies didn't give up so easily, even with Varen gone. There might still be hidden forces working against them. The session ended for the day, but whispers followed them out into the grand hallway. Some nobles avoided their gaze, while others seemed almost respectful now. Lyra finally spoke once they were alone in the side corridor. Aaron, you risked everything to protect me. Why? Aaron paused. He could have given her many answers: duty, fairness, loyalty, but instead, he said simply, because it was the right thing to do. She smiled faintly, but there was still worry in her eyes. The trial isn't over yet. My father may have admitted the evidence is real, but that doesn't mean he will protect me. Aaron nodded. Then we'll be ready for whatever comes next. Later that night, in the guest quarters given to them by the court, Aaron reviewed more files. He had found something strange, an encrypted message buried deep in the security archives. It was dated from years ago, before Lyra was even accused. When he finally unlocked it, his eyes widened. It was a message from someone inside the palace warning of a much larger conspiracy. One that involved not only Varen, but also an unknown faction, with influence over the king himself. If this was true, then tomorrow's final session in the courtroom might be even more dangerous than today. Outside the palace walls, strange ships were reported near the borders of the kingdom's space. The timing was too perfect to be a coincidence. Someone was moving their pieces quickly. Aaron closed the file and prepared himself. He knew that in the final part of the trial, he might have to do more than present evidence. He might have to reveal the entire truth about the king's court, and that truth could shake the kingdom to its core. But he also knew one thing: humanity had faced impossible odds before, and they had always found a way to prevail. As the alien moonlight streamed through the window, Aaron silently promised himself no matter how dangerous it became, he would see this through to the end. The courtroom on the starship Aurora's honor was silent. No engines hummed. No whispers passed through the crowd. Every alien delegate, every human officer, and even the royal guard stood still, as if the air itself refused to move. Rion stood at the center, hands resting on the railing in front of him. Beside him was Princess Alara, her eyes fixed on the massive tribunal seat where 3 alien judges sat, their robes shimmering like starlight. Behind them, King Varen remained in his own section, flanked by his guards. His gaze was sharp, but there was something else in it now, the faint realization that control was slipping from his grasp. Rion of Earth, the lead judge said in a deep, resonating voice, you have brought serious charges against the crown of the Varen Empire. Your evidence has been examined. Now, you will speak your final words. Rion nodded slowly, feeling the weight of the moment. He had spent days collecting witness statements, holo recordings, and historical logs, proof that King Varen's expansion campaigns had violated interstellar law, and that Alara had risked everything to expose it. Honorable judges, Rion began, his voice steady. This case is not about revenge. It is about truth. I stand here not as a soldier, not as a human, but as someone who believes that justice must exist beyond planets, beyond species. The princess behind me risked her life to bring this truth here. She was not taken from her people. She came willingly because she knew what her father had done. A quiet murmur rippled through the alien delegates. The king's jaw tightened. Rion continued. We have the proof of illegal planetary blockades, forced mining labor, and the destruction of neutral colonies. These actions are not the signs of a leader protecting his people, but of one seeking power at any cost. And if the law means anything, then it must be applied equally, even to a king. He stepped back, letting the weight of his words sink into the room. The judges conferred in low, echoing tones. The translators hummed softly, converting their alien speech into dozens of languages. Minutes passed like hours. Alara stood still, her hands clasped together, her breathing quiet but tense. Finally, the lead judge raised his hand. We have reached our decision. The room fell silent again. King Varen of the Varen Empire. The judge said, "You are found guilty of violating interstellar law, engaging in unlawful military campaigns, and committing acts against protected worlds. You will step down from your throne, effective immediately. You are confined to diplomatic custody until your trial on your homeworld." Gasps echoed through the chamber. Some alien delegates exchanged shocked looks, others nodded in approval. The king's face remained cold, but his hands clenched the arms of his chair. "This is not over," Varen said, his voice low but sharp. "It is," Alara said quietly, stepping forward for the first time. Her voice was calm, but filled with unshakable resolve. "It is over, Father. The people will choose a better path now." The royal guards hesitated, looking to the judges for orders. When they received the silent nod, they approached the king, removing his ceremonial crown. It was the first time in decades the galaxy had seen Varen without it. As the king was escorted out, the weight in the air seemed to lift slightly. The chamber filled with murmurs again, this time louder, freer. Alara turned to Rian. "It's done." Rian gave a small smile. "It's just the beginning. Ours." Later, in the observation deck of the Aurora's honor, the two of them stood by the massive glass wall, looking out at the quiet spread of stars. "You realize," Alara said softly, "that what happened today will be remembered for centuries. A human bringing an alien princess into a courtroom. It's something they'll tell in every world. That believes in justice." Rian shrugged lightly. "I didn't do it alone. You took the bigger risk. I was just stubborn enough to see it through." She gave a small laugh, the first genuine one in days. "Stubbornness is a human specialty, isn't it?" "Some might call it that," Rian said, grinning. "Others might call it courage." There was a long, peaceful pause. Outside, a small transport ship passed, its lights blinking slowly. Somewhere out there, worlds were free because of what they had done today. Rian finally broke the silence. "So, what now?" Alara's expression turned thoughtful. "Now, I go back to my people. Without the crown above me, I can speak to them as one of them, not as their princess. And maybe we can build something better." "And me?" Rian asked. "You," she said with a smile, "will probably find another impossible mission to throw yourself into." Rian laughed quietly. "Probably." 3 days later, the Aurora's honor docked at the Varen capital station. Crowds gathered, not to cheer for the king, but to watch history unfold. The royal guards escorted Varen into custody, while Lara addressed the gathered citizens. Her speech was simple, clear, and full of hope. She spoke of rebuilding trust, of opening trade and peace, treaties with other worlds, and of remembering that leadership was service, not dominance. Some citizens were skeptical, but many listened closely. They had lived under the king's rule for so long that they had forgotten what choice felt like. When she finished, she stepped back, letting the crowd speak among themselves. Change would not happen overnight, but the first step had been taken. That evening, Rian prepared to leave. He stood by his small ship, checking the systems. Alara approached, wearing simpler clothes now, without any royal insignia. "You're really going?" she asked. Rian nodded. "Yeah, my work here is done. Time for someone else to take the lead." She hesitated, then held out her hand. "Thank you, Rian, for believing in something bigger than yourself." He shook her hand firmly. "Thank you for having the courage to stand against your own father." They exchanged one last look, one that carried respect, trust, and the unspoken bond of two people who had changed the galaxy together. Rian boarded his ship, engines humming to life. As he pulled away from the station, the stars stretched into lines, and the vessel jumped into faster-than-light travel. Somewhere ahead lay new challenges, new fights for justice, and Rian knew one thing for certain. Wherever injustice tried to hide, someone would be stubborn enough to drag it into the light.